and change the background color just a little bit. All right, and now we're going to have the section. So we're going to have a, don't do that, copy. We're going to have a sidebar, so two sidebars. We're going to have a sidebar here and a sidebar here, right here. And then we're going to have the content, which is going to be right here. So, you know, you can say this is a standard layout of a lot of web pages. So left sidebar and right RIGHT sidebar. And this is going to be the content area. Change the color here just a little bit, make that gray, make that yellow, and make that like a dark color. All right. Now, before I go ahead, I want to ask you guys, Jacob, if I said go ahead and build a web page to have all these different sections on a scale of 1 to 10, where you at? 1 being, oh, too easy. 10 being, don't even get me started. Where will you be at?
I would know how to make the banner and like the left sidebar, but other than that, probably not very much other than those things. Maybe the content section too, I could figure that out, but right bar and other bars in the middle, I don't think I could do that.
Okay. Chris, on a scale of 1 to 10.
I feel like I could get the banner and navigation. That's pretty much about it.
All right, so you guys are kind of like on the same page. All right, so let's do this. We have the banner, we have the navigation. All right. Now, I think for this to make complete sense, let's just clean up the whole page and just rebuild it, right? Because once you can get a page to be laid out, you can always put any content you like, right? You can put the banner there, you can put pictures, you can put anything. But getting the layout is always tricky. So let's work on that layout like a shell, right? Let's do that shell. So, you know, I'm just going to clean everything out here, right? And just restart it. So there you go, HTML. It's not as complicated as it appears, right? We're going to have all the different sections. So we have the HTML, and of course you have your head section, right? You have your head section right there, where you have the title and such. Title. Okay, I'm just going to resave this so I don't lose it. I'm just going to change the date, which is going to be today's date, 29th. And I'm just going to call it 29th. That's it. All right. So we're going to have a title there. What's a good title? We can go with the statue. Keep going with the Statue of Liberty. It's fine. All right. So you have your head section. You have your then you have your body section. Right. You have your body section. Like those are the main divisions, right, of your web page. You have the head. You have the body sections. All right. And of course, in the head section, you're going to have your style sheet. Right, so let's go to the body. Now we want to go with this shape here. All right, so first thing I want to do is I'm going to use a div. Like we said before, divisions, right? Divisions are used to section out your web page, right? Used to section out your web page. Now, in some of the examples we worked on so far, some of these sections are referred to as the header. Some of the sections are referred to as article, as sidebar, right? So those are specific names for different sections, right? But just to simplify things, I'm just going to go with a div for each section and then rename it myself, kind of like customize it, all right? So here's what I mean. So I'm going to give that div an ID, and I want that to be my banner. So that's going to be my banner. I'm just going to put the word banner in here. Now, to be sure that you're seeing what I'm doing, like it's visible to you, I'm going to go ahead and create the style sheet, because without the style sheet, nothing's going to be it's going to be obvious to you at all. So I'm just going to start. I'm just going to do an embedded style sheet because we don't have many pages yet. Just an embedded style sheet. All right. So the first thing we have there is a banner. For you to create your div, you need to use the pound symbol, which you guys might refer to as a hash symbol, but is referred to in technical terms as a pound symbol. So I'm going to give it basic properties. Height, H-E-I-G-H-T. Going to say the height is, let's just say 300 px right now. We're going to give it a width. Now, how do you determine width of a page on a computer? It's a question that you guys might have in your mind. Like, you have a laptop, you have a monitor, you have different size screens. How do you know what is the best width? Now, out of experience and working on this for a while, usually we go with 1200 px, right? 1200 px just about fits a regular laptop, right? And certainly it's going to work on a monitor, on a regular desktop monitor, right? So you always want to make sure that it works on a laptop, which is, there's a general kind of, shall I say, there's a common size for laptops, right? If you can get it to work on the laptop, then a desktop will be fine. All right. You don't want to size it to a desktop, right? Like it has a fixed size to a desktop, which is a larger screen. But when you get on a laptop, then you're going to have to scroll like horizontally, and you never want to scroll horizontally on a website. It's just bad design. You can scroll vertically, absolutely, that's fine, but horizontally, it's a no-no. So 1200 or 1400 is kind of fine. Just going to go with 1200, and you see what I mean. So we'll give it a width, we give it a background color. Just give it a background color right now of yellow. All right, so let's preview it and see what we got. Eric, what do you think we're going to see on the screen when we preview this? Like, what part of this diagram is going to show?
The banner.
Eric?
The banner at the top.
Yeah, the banner here. This part should show up, right? So let's look at it. I got to change the date. 9. So, all right. So you can see if I zoom in or zoom out rather, you can see that it has this narrow shape, right? It doesn't fill the screen. If I just go to a regular view of the screen, it is right about 1200. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that it is, well, we'll get to that later. I don't want to put too much on your plate right now. Okay, so let's just stick with that. The width is 1200 pixels, right? All right, let's keep going. So we have the banner. Now we want to have the other things. Navigation. So you can just copy this. It's kind of, you work faster when you copy, and all you need to do is you paste and then you just edit a little bit. So I'm just going to edit this to be nav for short. Just going to call it nav, NAV. And then again, I can copy this part here from line 5 to line 10. All right, copy that, paste it down here, and just change this to nav. So that is going to be the section for navigation. All right. Michael, what's a good height? Going by our diagram, what's a good height for the navigation?
Probably like 100. or maybe like 150, like half of what the height was for banner.
Well, let's see. Remember, we're trying to see if we can make it look like this side here, right? This side, sort of. So if the banner is 300, I think. Well, let's see what 150 looks like. It might be too tall, but let's see. So say 150. Change the color to red for now. Then you save it. Go back here, refresh the page. Where is it? I got to close some of these pages here. Got all kinds of things going on. Get this out of the way. Move this here. All right. Where's my page? I think the problem is I don't have a, okay, that's it. Okay, that's it right there. So now look at that. Oh, we put the width in the wrong place, right, Michael? We kind of flipped it around. That's why it's looking strange. The width should be, what we're changing is the height, not the, right? Yeah, the height is what we're changing to 150. And the width stays the same, 1200. All right. Yeah, that's why when you're building your page, your website, you got to preview the page like every time you make a change. That's how you see what is going on. You're not going to just know what it's going to look like. You have to test it out in the browser, like always. So refresh the page, and now, okay, well, so Michael, what does this look like? Look at the size of the banner of the navigation. I think it's a bit too thick, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we're going to say, how about 75 or 70? Let's see what that looks like. All right, that kind of works. Always a good idea to have like a template you're working with, and this is a good, where is it here? This is a good template, and also the drawing we have is a good template. So maybe just make this a bit narrower here, something like that. All right. Okay, so we have the banner and we have the navigation. Okay, now let's do the what's next? Left sidebar. All the guys at the bottom there. Okay, so we go back into the code, and you just keep following the process. The same style. You need another div. So copy that, paste it down here, and we're going to call this left side bar. You can always call it any name. I mean, these names are not like some technical names. You can call it pizza. You can call it Jupiter, whatever you want. But of course, if you use those strange sounding names, they're not very descriptive. So if you go back to your code, you might wonder, why is this called Jupiter? Right? It's not going to make sense to you. So you want to give it a name that is like descriptive. It makes sense what you're trying to do, right? So banner, nav, left sidebar, I think those make sense. All right, so again, you can just copy this block of code here, put it down here, paste, and then you do your edit. So left sidebar. And you got to type exactly what you see in there. Left sidebar. So left sidebar, Jacob, in terms of this, what's it now? What we're going to adjust? Is it the height or the width? Here's our drawing. Left sidebar.
The width.
The width. So what do you think a good width is? Because now we have 1200 across. Mm-hmm. So what will be a good width here for this guy? Maybe? So you're saying like 300? Or is that 400?
Yeah, I mean that's like looks where it would about line up, kind of. If 1200 is like the whole length almost, so.
So if that's 300, and then the yellow guy, the right side bar is 3, so that's 6. and the content will be about 60, right? So I think that works. 300, all right. So let's go in here and say the width is going to be 300, and the height. Well, we didn't determine the full height, so we can just say, I don't know, where is it? Maybe the height. Let's just see what it looks like. I'm just going to put a random number for now and say maybe 600. Let's see what that looks like, 600 pixels. Now give it a color of gray, Gray, and then save that. All right, so let's see what we got. Okay, so let me just zoom out here so we can see what we got. So we got a banner, navigation, and we have the left sidebar. Okay. Now there's a kind of a rule. You may not see it anywhere, but when you're laying out a page, I'm just going to give it a rules. Maybe you say it's Professor Banjo's rules, rules of website layout. Okay, so you want to go top. First thing you want to do is top, then left side, then so you create the top, then you do what's on the left side, then you do center or middle, however you say that, and then you go right side, and then you go bottom. So when you're laying out your sections, right? You want to do top, you do the left side section, the middle or center section, the right side, and then the bottom. Right? Like think about it as an S shape, something like that, right? Yeah, I think that's a good one. S shape, top, left, middle, right, bottom. Maybe S shape works, something like that. Okay. So now let's do the center or the middle, the content. And you're gonna, well, let me just do it. I'm not gonna say anything. Let me just do it. So copy, paste it down here, and then you just edit. So we're gonna call this content. And you can just say that is, we're gonna get rid of this, the words, they're just like placeholders. All the words you can see, all those words, banner, but we're gonna get rid of those guys. But for now, it just helps you with direct, with what's where, okay? Chris, is this making sense? Or are you guys like, oh, I don't know what's going on here?
This makes sense, yes. I remember I was trying to mess around with divs like about a week ago, and it was messing up where it's like I had the left side, but then the center would be like down below it for whatever reason.
Yeah. Okay, well, you're going to see that now, but yeah, let's just see what happens. There's a rule I didn't mention, but I want us to see it first, kind of like for real. All right, so we have the content. Let's use this. Let's use this block of code here. All right, so left sidebar, it's going to be called content. So the content, I think we figured out the height already. It's the same height as the left sidebar. The width, I think that was going to be 600 also, right? Because 336. 336, yep. So 600. It's kind of like a square, like a box. So we just say that's going to be like blue. And let's see what that looks like. All right. Now, why is the blue box? We don't want it to be there. We want it to be right next to the gray, on the right side of the gray box. Right, Ibrahim? Ibrahim, you there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
If I zoom out a little bit, why is the blue box at the bottom, all the way at the bottom there? Yeah, everything was looking nice up till now. Everything was like staying in place. Any ideas? Anybody? So let me give you, in terms of rules, right? By default, every item you put on a web page is going to align to the left by default. Whatever you put on a web page is always going to be left aligned. That is the default rule. You have to add some properties to get it to move to the right or to move to some other section of the page, right? But by default, it is always going to be left aligned. And that's why that blue box right now is left aligned, right? Because we haven't specified any extra properties. We just stuck it there, and we think it's just going to automatically position itself to the right side of the left sidebar. It's not going to do that if you don't tell it what to do. So here's something we can do. Here's a property we can use. So you got to go into the left sidebar and the content. Go to line 24 and add something called a float. And we call that float. The value is float left. So let's see what happens. Save, refresh. Now see what happens, right? We did a float left. Now, when you do a float, I think we got to adjust the width a little bit, but we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, I think the width needs to be wider. Whatever. Yeah. So when you do a float left, basically what you do, if I can use an arrow again, maybe that will kind of help. There's an arrow. Let's make it a bit thick. The color. All right. So when you use a float left, what you're kind of saying is, it's like you're saying the opposite thing in reverse. You're saying, so right now, we apply the float left to the left sidebar. It's like the left sidebar is saying, I'm going to be on the left, you go to my right. That's kind of like what that means. Right? By applying the float left to the left sidebar, right, the left sidebar forces the content to go to its right side. If that makes, well, it may not make sense to you, but that's exactly what is going on, right? The left sidebar is saying, I am going to be on the left, now you go to my right side and stay on the right side. That's exactly what's going on there. Eric, does that sound crazy? That's what's happening. You apply a float left, it keeps the left sidebar on the left and pushes the other item or the other div to the right side of the left sidebar. Okay? That's how it works. All right, now look at something else here. Now we're going to get the right sidebar. This right sidebar here. Let's do the same thing, similar, copy, paste that right there. And this is going to be right sidebar. Oops. Okay, right sidebar. Oh, I didn't change the name of this guy here. This is left, and this is right. Okay. All right, so, well, the properties are kind of similar to the left sidebar. So I'm just going to use the left sidebar, copy that, go down here, paste. And this is right, R-I-G-H-T, right sidebar. Now, let me just say this. The arrangement of your styles in your style sheet doesn't matter. You can put the left sidebar to come first, the nav goes before that, the nav goes after. Doesn't matter where you place all the different, these guys are referred to as selectors, actually, selectors. Let me put a comment there. No. I'll put a comment there. Yeah, this guy's banner, they basically select the ID, right, that has its name. So you can say that's a selector on line 5. That's a selector there. That's a selector. All those names are selectors. Or you might even say ID selectors. ID selectors. So they point to the corresponding name in your HTML page. So the nav, the banner up here is the selector, ID selector for banner here. So there's a kind of, they correspond. Okay. So it doesn't matter how you lay out your styles up there, but the arrangement of your divs, it matters. Like I said, a kind of a rule is an S shape. You want to lay out from the top, the left, the middle, the right side, then the bottom. If you change everything around, it's going to be messed up, and you're going to see that in a second. All right, so we have the right side here. Let's change the color to whatever color, orange, and save. And let's see what happens. Okay. So now we have that same problem where by default, it sticks to the left side. So Jacob, bring out your magic wand and flash it right now. How do we get that guy to go to the right side of the blue box of the content?
Float right.
Float right on the orange box?
Yeah.
Okay, let's try that. Where is it? So we're going to go here and change this to RIGHT, float right. Save. Refresh. Where'd he go?
Yeah, it's way over there.
Where?
In the
It's gone.
far
It's disappeared.
right corner. Yeah.
You mean it went all the way to the opposite side of the screen? Like it went all the way to the right? Okay, let me help you out a little bit. So believe it or not, you got to use float left on the content box, because right now we have float left on the gray box. So it makes the gray box stay to the left and pushes the blue box to the right side of it. Okay? Pichette, have you been catching all this? Okay, because I didn't see your face until just right now. All right.
Really? I've been on.
Oh, okay. I guess I have to scroll down, way down in this Zoom thing. All right. So what we're saying is, well, Jacob said something and he flashed his magic wand and the guy disappeared. That wasn't the plan, Jacob, to make it go poof. So let's see. So you got to use left. You hardly use float right. It's mostly float left, right? So if we do left here, we've got to do float left also on the content, right? Or should I say correct? I should stop saying right when we're talking about right and left. I should say correct, something like that. Less confusing. So if you apply, well, we haven't applied it to content yet. But if we apply to the right side bar, all right, so it's not going to show. So let's apply that. Now, you also notice before we apply that the content is not as wide as what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 600 pixels tall and wide, but it's kind of half its width. So the float left plays a very important role here. So I'm going to apply float left here. left. Save, refresh, and watch. So the float left gets, the float left makes the content stay on the left side, and it pushes the other guy to its right side. And it also expands to fill the dimensions that you set up, the dimensions for that particular box. So float is a very, you can see that, right? It's a big deal because your default positioning on a website is everything is just going to be on the left side. But when you add the float, then you get it to move positions where everything can be side by side. You can actually never get stuff to be side by side on the web page just by default. It's not going to happen. They are going to be on the left side. So, Pisette, is this kind of making some sense?
Yep.
All right, Chris, Chris, how's this looking now? Because you said you were, struggling with this earlier last week. So
Yes,
is it like, oh, I see what I missed?
Yes.
Okay,
So I have a question.
sure.
So you know how when we were using the images before, we used like for width, like 100% so that it fills like the whole screen. Can you do the same thing here? Where you could just be like, I want the left bar to be 30%. I want this one to be 30%. So like it only take up that much of the screen.
Let me see if I understand. You're saying like the banner. You want the banner to be like 50%? Something like that?
So, like, you know how like when we like added the Statue of Liberty image in, and like some of them are like distorted, but if you make them like their width at like 100% so that it fills the whole screen, it like stretches out the image so it looks nicer. Could you do the same thing with the boxes like that?
All right. So you're saying you want
Like,
it
if I
to
want my
fill the screen.
content to go across the whole thing, I could just put like content with 100% so it fills the whole screen.
You can't exactly do that like that, right? Because now if you had only one item, then it's fine. But when you have multiple items, you have to get your calculations absolutely spot on, right? So it's not so straightforward. Let me just say, like I'm just gonna say 100%. I mean, there's a way to do it. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but you got to get your calculations right. For example, there's something we're missing here, but I'll get to that in a second, and hopefully I can answer your question, Jacob. But we can. It's like a yes and no answer.
It would just
right?
be a lot more difficult. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't say difficult. You just have to. You got to. It's all based on rules and calculation. So you just have to set up the calculation and say, okay, if I do it this way, then I can accomplish what I'm trying to do, right? So let's just kind of put that on the shelf for 1 second, all right? Okay, so now we have a footer. We have to put a footer at the bottom there, because based on our design. Well, we didn't actually put a footer here, so let's just stretch this guy, drag this guy here, just put it here. And we're going to say that is the footer. F-O-O-T-R. All right. We can change the color. All right, so let's put the footer there. And let's see. So probably the last thing we need. So same thing, you can just copy this part here, copy, paste it down here, and just edit. And then we copy this block of code, paste it here, F-O-O-T-E-R. Yeah, I'm going to let you guys, do your demonstration a little bit because we've gone I think we've gone almost over an hour now. So you can take a break and do some work on this, but let's I think we're almost at the end of this part. So footer, the width is going to be 1200, right? That's the width. The height, I can say the height can just be like the height of the navigation, right? So navigation was what? 770. So let's do 70 and give it a, I'm running out of colors. Brown. Let's see. Now let's take out the float and see what happens without the float. So save, refresh. Okay. So no float and it doesn't show up at all. It's probably hiding somewhere in the background, to be honest. So if you add the float back there and see what happens. Now you see it's all the way to the, it's some, it's like, I don't want to have anything to do with you guys, right? So here's where we have to make like a major adjustment. Okay, now going back to this diagram, you notice this blue box, right? The blue box in the background. Like you have the banner, the navigation, left sidebar, content, right sidebar, and the footer. And you have this blue box around it, okay? Now that blue box does an important job, right? It basically holds everything in place on the web page, but we don't have that. We didn't use that. So it is going to be difficult to keep all your sections together. Things are going to tend to fly off the page, just like we have with this footer right now, because there is nothing containing everything. So we need to create a div whose job it is to hold everything in place. Think about it as a sandwich, right? The sandwich has the top bun and the bottom bun, and it holds all the juicy stuff in the middle, sort of like that. I don't know if I should be saying sandwiches right now, because you guys are going to like, oh man, let's get out of here. But kind of like that. So let me show you what I mean quickly. So let's go here. Now, this blue box, I'm going to just call it a container or a box, a container. Its job is to hold all the different pieces and keep them from falling off. Okay, so I'm going to go to the top here, say line 55, put a div. And now I'm not going to close it on line 55. I'm going to go to the bottom and close it at the end. Remember what I said, like a sandwich, right? It starts at the top. It starts here on line 55. It ends on line 64. And all these guys, in fact, maybe I'm just going to indent it so that it kind of looks more like what I'm trying to discuss here. So you can see that, right? So here's your sandwich. Here's all the juicy stuff. And then you have the div starts here and ends here. All the other divs, right, they start and end on the same line. But this container div, in fact, I'm going to put a comment here and say container div starts. It's always important to put comments in your code, guys. It helps you to remember what you did when you go back for reference, because you can forget, you can do the right job, but you might just forget how you got there, right? Like, what is this guy doing here, So I'm going to copy that and paste it here and say div ends here. All right, so we got to give it a name, ID. Like I said, just going to call it container. It just kind of makes sense because it's going to hold everything. It's very important that you split that div like a sandwich. If you close it out on the same line, it's not going to do it. It's not going to do what we're trying to do. We want it to contain all these items. So it starts on line 55 and ends on line 62. Okay, so we're going to call it container. So you can see that, right? Now, let's style it up here. Let's give it a block of code here. Put it here and say container. All right. So now in terms of the height and the width of the container, I want you guys to think about it for a second. What's the height going to be and what's the width going to be? Chris. Remember, it's the container that's going to hold everything in place.
Would it be?
So what's out?
I remember
Yeah,
we
go
did
ahead.
this one time before because we were talking about it with my banner. Would it be 100%? Because if it's the whole page.
Well, if we use 100%, 100% of what? Remember that our width right now is very specific. The banner is 1200 width, the navigation, the footer. So they all have a fixed width. If you say 100%, let me show you. Let me do it. You see what I mean? Let me just do 100%.
But
So
do you add the width together? Do you add all the
what do you
width
mean add it together?
to see how much you want? You know,
Add all the width?
yeah. Oh, I mean
So
the height,
what and what
sorry.
are we going to add? Oh, you mean for the height? Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, for the height, absolutely. That makes sense. So, in fact, you're absolutely right. So let's see. Let me get on my calculator here. Calculator. And let's say, okay, so we're going to start with the nav is 70 plus. The banner is 300 plus. The left side bar is 600 plus the footer. The footer is 70. So it looks like the height is 1040. So I think you're right about that. So let's do that for that 1040, 1040 for the height. But we're still not sure of the width. So let's see. Chris says 100%. Someone says 100%. So let's try 100% and see what we get. Nothing wrong in trying what you think, if it comes to your mind. If you're not getting it right, then you do your research or you change the values. So let's see. What's the background color here? Let's use I'm running out of colors. Let's use light blue. Or aqua. Just something that's going to stand out for now. All right, aqua. Okay, so let's see what we got. Now look at that. So if you say 100%, it looks like the container is going to be 100% of your entire screen. But all the items are not 100%. They have a fixed width of 1200 pixels. So I think the container has to be a fixed width. The point is to hold everything in place. If all these guys were like Jacob was asking percentages, then we could use percentages. But we can't because they have a fixed width. All right? So we got to go here and make the container a fixed width of 1200 pixels. PX. Now, the problem, should I say, is once we do that, it's not going to show. But it's not supposed to show. So if you notice what we just did now, let me undo that, and you see. So this is what we had before. What did we have? Was it? We had, come on, percent. We had 100%. So we had 100%. Now look at the footer. The footer is just flying around. But once we get the container to be the perfect width, it's going to force the footer to go to where it's supposed to be at. Right? It's kind of like having a bottle, and whatever you pour in that bottle is going to stay in the shape of the bottle. Right? It's going to maintain that shape. So once you lock your container to a fixed width, everything in that container has to stay in that container fixed width, including the footer right now that's just kind of flying around. So do that again. So make it 1200 px, save. I'm going to refresh and watch. Look at that. So you don't see the container because it's, you know, it's a perfect dimension, but it locks everything inside the container. And the footer is now where it should be. So it's like you have grouped all the items. You've grouped them, and now you can move them around as like it was one item. So see what I mean? If I want to move everything to the center of the page of the screen, right? I can go here and say margin left AUTO, margin right AUTO, right? So see what happens when I do that. Wait a minute. I didn't see my movement that I was expecting. Margin left. Margin left. Did I put it in the wrong place? Let me see something here. I think I might have put that in the wrong property. Let's create a property for the body tag. I just want to be sure I'm doing that right. Let's take it out of here. Put that in the body. I'll explain that. I didn't see that happen there. It's supposed to move it to the center of the page. I think I have margin left auto. Give me 1 second. Let me look at some of the code that I had before just to compare. So it's to move it center of the page, like center it in your page. So let me just look at that for 1 second. See what I have there. Where is it? Let me see if this has what I'm looking for. Right. Yeah, it has. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Margin left, margin right. All right, so let me go back here. It has margin right, margin left. Yeah, it looks right. Margin left, margin right. Yeah, I think I did it correctly. Let's try that again. I'm moving. Okay, let me move it out of here and see if that makes a difference. I don't think so. Yeah, I got to troubleshoot that. Let me see here. Leave ID container. I think I'm missing something there. I'm not seeing it right now. I think I got to troubleshoot that and then see what it is that I am missing. It's supposed to get everything to come centered, right? but I think I'm missing something. Can't really tell now. All right. Well, we can. The point is. Okay, wait a second. Let me see if I do this. No, I'm still not doing it. The point is supposed to make it centered in the page, just like you have this example here where everything is centered in the page. All right, it's centered in the page. Like you can see, the left side and the right side have equal margins. Is what I'm trying to do. But